Tonight, on First at 9 this Thursday, the 24th of July 2025. Landmark ruling. The Supreme Court orders Express Pearl owners to pay $1 billion in compensation for the damage caused to the environment and livelihoods of the fishing community in Sri Lanka's worst maritime environmental catastrophe. Also holds government authorities accountable for failing to take timely and appropriate preventive measures. EduQuake. Controversial education reforms hit Parliament. President urges unity. Requests opposition not to sabotage the program at the grassroots level. Organised killings. Government files complaint with CID to determine whether an organised group is behind the recent surge in wild elephant shootings. Free trade. India and the United Kingdom ink a landmark free trade agreement expected to bring a multi-billion-pound boost to both economies.
This is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana. I'm Tharindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. In your top story this evening, the Supreme Court today delivered a landmark ruling on the case pertaining to the MV Express Pearl marine disaster, holding both government authorities and the vessel's operators accountable for what has been deemed the worst maritime environmental catastrophe in Sri Lanka's history. The Supreme Court ordered the vessel's operators to pay $1 billion as compensation for the damage caused to the country's marine environment and the livelihoods of the fishing community. The Singapore-flagged container ship MV Express Pearl, which was carrying cargo including 25 tons of nitric acid and approximately 1,500 containers, caught fire in the sea area about 9.5 nautical miles off the port of Colombo on May 20, 2021. The vessel continued to burn for several weeks and eventually sank on June 2nd, marking what is now considered Sri Lanka's worst marine environmental disaster. The catastrophe severely impacted the country's marine ecosystem, marine life, coral reefs and economic sectors such as the fishing and tourism industries. Following a 30-day trial, a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court, chaired by Chief Justice Murthy Fernando, delivered the verdict on 4 fundamental rights petitions filed by Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, the Environmental Justice Centre, the fishing community and other concerned parties. These petitions sought redress for the damage caused to the country's ecosystem and fishing community. In her ruling, Chief Justice Fernando says the incident caused severe environmental harm to the western, southern and northern coastal regions and that fishing communities, particularly in Pamunugama and Negombo in the western province, suffered significant hardship. The court held the ship's captain, its local representative Sea Consortium Lanka Private Limited and the ship's owner responsible for the disaster. The Chief Justice emphasised that the harbour master of the Port of Colombo, the ship's captain and the local representative deliberately withheld critical information regarding the incident. All responsible parties were found to have intentionally concealed the truth. The court also ruled that former State Minister Dr. Lanka Godaheva and the Marine Environment Protection Authority violated the fundamental rights of the public by failing to take timely and appropriate preventive measures. Regarding the role of the Attorney General, the Chief Justice criticised the limited legal action taken, specifically filing only a civil case in Singapore and one in the Sri Lankan High Court, stating that this too constituted a violation of the fundamental rights of Sri Lankan citizens. The Supreme Court ordered the shipping company to pay $1 billion in compensation for the environmental damage and harm caused to the fishing community. The compensation is to be paid to the Secretary to the Treasury within 1 year from the date of the ruling, with the first instalment due by September 23rd this year. The court also directed the Attorney General to submit progress reports every 3 months on the status of compensation payments. In addition, the court also ordered the Attorney General to conduct a criminal investigation and file charges against the individuals responsible for this tragedy and ordered the Director of the Criminal Investigation Department to seek advice from the Attorney General and commence the relevant investigation within 3 months. Moreover, the Bribery Commission was ordered to launch a new investigation into the report, with the Director General required to submit progress reports to the court every 3 months. The Supreme Court also ordered the establishment of the MV Ex-Pearl Compensation Commission to be chaired by retired Supreme Court Justice Gamini Amarasekara. Additionally, a separate Restoration and Conservation Committee is to be formed under the Secretary to the Minister of Environment, tasked with rehabilitating the damaged coastline and marine areas. This committee is instructed to consult with experts in the field, and the petitioners may recommend qualified individuals for the task. Both committees must submit progress reports to the court every 3 months. Finally, the court ordered that the case be recalled on September 25th this year to assess the progress of all directives. The Attorney General was also instructed to ensure the payment of legal fees and associated costs incurred by the petitioners, with the right to recover these costs from the responsible shipping company.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Yadia, ලොව වැඩියෙන්ම අලෙවි වන ඉලෙක්ට්‍රික් ස්කූටරය Avance Auto වෙතින්.
Minister of Environment Dr. Dhammika Patabandi announced that a complaint has been filed with the Criminal Investigation Department to determine whether an organised group is behind the recent surge in wild elephant shootings across the country. According to the minister, 21 wild elephants have been reported injured by gunshot wounds so far this year.
Recently, there have been several reports of wild elephants being shot in different parts of the country. Environmental organizations have voiced concern, noting a sharp increase in elephant deaths due to gunshot injuries.
This is being done by an organized group using snipers. These elephants have been shot from long range. In the Inamolo forest, many elephants have been killed, not because they entered villages, but inside the forest itself. This is being done to reduce the elephant population and seize forest lands to benefit those who supported them politically. All past and present governments have failed to protect elephants. They tell people to do whatever they want if animals come into their lands. If that's the case, we should tell animals to do the same to humans who enter the forest.
Meanwhile, veterinary officers at the Nikavartia Wildlife Office treated an elephant that was shot in its left foreleg at the Kalavawa Reserve. Against this alarming backdrop, Minister Patabandi reiterated the need for a formal investigation into the shootings.
As of July 10th, Wildlife Department veterinarians were treating 9 elephants for gunshot wounds. By July 13th, that number had risen to 13. As of yesterday evening, 21 elephants were being treated for such wounds. This sharp increase raises serious concern about the possibility of an organized group being involved. That is why we have filed a complaint that sought the assistance of the CID and the police.
අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ පොලිසියේ සහාය ලබා ගැනීමට තීරණය කළේ.
Arpico Next Gen. Make the leap to faster sleep.
හොඳම ෆෝන් එකක් ගන්න. ළඟම අපාන්ස් එකට යන්න.
The Samagijana Balavege managed to secure chairmanship in the Waligama Pradeshi Sabha, where several previous sessions were prematurely adjourned amid controversial circumstances. Meanwhile, the National People's Power managed to establish power in the Palmadula Pradeshi Sabha today amid a tense situation during its secret ballot. The vote to elect the chairman of the Waligama Pradeshi Sabha was postponed on the 27th of June when members and supporters of the NPP disrupted council proceedings, alleging that 2 NPP members of the council had been abducted. However, the Waligama Pradeshi Sabha convened for the second time today to elect its chairman and deputy chairman under the patronage of local government commissioner of the southern province, Erande Umanga Mendes. The NPP nominated Chintaka Heva Patirana as its candidate for the chairmanship, while the SGB nominated Lasantha Vikramasekara. The National People's Power requested a secret ballot, while the Samagijana Balavege-led opposition requested an open ballot. Accordingly, a secret ballot was held to determine the election procedure, and the number of votes were tied due to one vote being rejected. Subsequently, an open ballot was held where the NPP candidate received 22 votes, while the SGB candidate secured 23, making SGB's Lasantha Vikramasekara the chairman of the Waligama Pradeshi Sabha. Another open ballot was held to elect the deputy chairman of the Pradeshi Sabha, where Denagama Rahulathera, candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, was elected with 23 votes.
The members of the National People's Power previously tried to sabotage the election and postponed it for a month. Not only did they sabotage it, but they also brought false allegations of abduction of their members and said one of their members' houses was targeted during a shooting. Despite all these challenges, Lasantha Vikramasekara of the Samagijana Balavege was elected the chairman of Waligama Pradesh Sabha. The team, including our chairman, government worked together with one belief and delivered a message to the nation. The National People's Power has been defeated. The Samak Janabalawegi and other parties who work together have secured victory. We delivered a message to the government that even exceeds that which they received through the election results. We request the members of NPP and the governor not to interfere our job. We can do this and we have proven that we are the team for that. We will set an example for the country by uplifting the Waligama Pradesh Sabha to the highest position.
In contrast, the National People's Power secured power in the Palmadulla Pradesh Sabha. A tense situation arose when a secret ballot was held to elect the chairman. However, local government commissioner of the Sabaragamu province, LMPW Bandara, proceeded with the election. The National People's Power candidate received 20 votes, while the Samak Janabalawegi-led opposition only received 17. Accordingly, MGA Darbasiri of the National People's Power was elected the chairman of the Palmadulla Pradesh Sabha. Leader of the Sarva Janabalaya parliamentarian Dilith Jayveer asserts that new education reforms should not be implemented to foster youth who are only qualified for employment. Speaking at the launch of Mega Heaters Mahagedara in Pannipitiya today, Jayveer further stated that education reforms must be implemented to create a younger generation who think beyond their own employment and create jobs for the country. The country's education system and its reforms have become a hot topic. I heard that the education reforms are being implemented to create a job market and to foster youth who are qualified for those jobs. We do not need reforms to create jobs since they are already being created. However, employment is not what we should be preparing the youth for. We should implement reforms to foster a younger generation with creative thinking who think beyond their own employment and create jobs. The government of Japan has offered scholarships for postgraduate degree programs for executive level young government officials in Sri Lanka for the year 2025 with a 687 million rupee grant. An exchange of notes between the two governments and the signing of the grant agreement between the government of Sri Lanka and the Japan International Cooperation Agency for the implementation of the program took place today at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Secretary to the Treasury and the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma, and the Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka attended the event. These scholarships are funded by the Japanese government and are offered on a grant basis through the Japanese Grant Aid for Human Resources Development Scholarship Program. The program has provided 240 opportunities for master's degree programs and 16 for PhD programs from 2010 to 2025. Speaking during the adjournment debate on the proposed education reforms in Parliament today, President Anura Dissanayake requested the support of all parties to achieve a comprehensive transformation in Sri Lanka's education system. Meanwhile, SJB legislator Dr. Harsha De Silva claimed that although the opposition is not opposed in principle to the reforms proposed by the government, sincerity from the government's side is essential for their effective implementation.
One of the key documents to keep these discussions at a high level is the concept paper. Today we are having this debate without a such concept paper. I would like to announce that the SJB has already compiled our concept paper. We presented it during the presidential as well as in the parliamentary elections. I believe it is important that the government move on from their PowerPoint presentation and present the concept papers. There should be a clear change in the education system. Information and communication technology should be a mandatory under this education system. Also by providing education on technical subjects such as artificial intelligence, data science, quantum computing, augmented and virtual reality and machine learning to the children, we must safeguard the human rights of education. We firmly believe that continuing history as a subject is a responsibility of ours towards the children.
President Anura Dissanayake also joined the adjournment debate today on education reforms.
I saw that when the topic of education reforms surfaces, many criticize the curricula on aspects such as the question of whether history would continue to be taught or not. We are not proposing reforms only concerning the curricula. This is a proposal for new education reforms in order to transform our country. Why? Because in our society, being uneducated and social standing are directly linked. If you are considered considerably uneducated, then you are poor. If you are poor, then you are considerably uneducated. Even if we take the program to eradicate poverty, education plays a key role in it. In our villages, there is a saying, even if one of the members of a family is educated, then the whole family will be well off. On the other hand, when we take crimes in the country, close to 80% of those who are incarcerated have not sat for the ordinary level examination. Close to 70% of those who are addicted to drugs have not passed the 8th grade. There's a link between crimes and drugs and education. One of the issues we have is children dropping out of schools. In 2019, 16,673 children dropped out of school, and in 2024, the figure was 20,755. One of the main objectives of these reforms is that no child should leave school without completing their education. If a child is not coming to school continuously for 3 days, a state official must conduct a personal investigation on them. All children must be included until they complete the 13 years of education. Turning to the second objective is in 2023, there were 90 schools without a single student. There were 115 schools which had less than 10 students. Of the entire school system, 1/3 of schools have less than 100 students in them. Therefore, this entire school system must be re-evaluated. We are going to definitely take that decision. Many start this conversation by panicking a bit. I'm saying this without a fear. Some schools must be closed. There are some schools we must merge. There are some areas where new schools must be opened. This government takes the responsibility of providing all students an excellent education. Our children have been turned into automatons. They have tuition until 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning. Doesn't a child need a childhood? A mechanized generation of children has been formed without any enjoyment or empathy. A country cannot move forward like this. Therefore, we must reduce this burden we have placed on our children. That is our responsibility. Children currently in grade 9 will have to choose their career path in 2029. Therefore, we will be guiding a child on the same path from grade 9 to 12. So why are you claiming that we are trying to erase history? Children who will be in grade 9 in 2029 will be in grade 13 by 2033. From there, apart from developing the university system, our main objectives is the vocational training institutions. We will create at least 40 vocational training institutions with at least 2 per district by 2033. During this transformation, one key issue is the teachers. Is the knowledge of the teachers sufficient for this? No, it is not. Not trying to offend anyone, but there are many who don't know how to send an email, an SMS or even a WhatsApp message. How can they contribute to developing a modern child? There will be a new teacher training program under these reforms. Under that, teachers will have to undergo a year-long training program every 5 years at least. They must return to the schools as modern teachers. This is not a program that will collapse because of a government change. Don't worry, there will be no regime change. This is a long-term program we must continue. Let's implement these reforms together.
ආණ්ඩුව මාරුණකින් කඩා වැටෙන එකක් නෙවෙයි මේක. මේක දීර්ඝ කාලීනව අපි පවත්වා ගත යුතුයි. මේ ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ අපි එකට කරමු.
When comparing the current reforms with the 1982 White Paper on Education, which was destroyed by the JVP, it becomes clear that many of these ideas were proposed back then. I believe Sri Lanka would have been in a much better place today if the leaders of the JVP at the time had possessed the foresight and intellect of the current president.
The Clean Sri Lanka program initiated by the government is nowhere to be seen now. Likewise, the animal census program that was started has failed. Therefore, we urge the government not to hesitate in implementing these proposed reforms. The president has requested that this program not be sabotaged and called on all of us to support these reforms. We are not against this initiative. We support it. However, the government must commit to implementing these reforms sincerely. These changes must not be limited to speeches and presentations. We were given a PowerPoint presentation titled Transform Education, Transform Sri Lanka, which mirrors a program started by former Minister Akila Viraj Karyawasam during the good governance era. We view this as a continuation of a meaningful initiative from the past, and we respect that. That is exactly how progress should happen. We are even afraid to hear the term white paper today. In the 1981 white paper presented by Ranil Wickremesinghe, only the paper was white. The objectives were all flawed. We are not linking our reform agenda with that document. We are open to discussions as much as necessary. However, unlike them, we are not imposing reforms forcefully.
There have been repeated concerns about the lack of a concept paper. We believe such documents should be shaped through inclusive dialogue. This is a journey that must continue with the ideas and input from everyone. It should not be guided solely by the vision of one or two individuals.
The final rites of Deputy Chief Prelate of the Askeri chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Anamadweshri Dhammadasi Thera, took place this afternoon with full state sponsorship at the Askeri Police Grounds in Kandy. Most Venerable Anamadweshri Dhammadasi Thera passed away last Monday at the age of 67 following a heart attack while receiving treatment at a private hospital. The late Thera's remains were placed at Lianagastana Purana Viharaya and later at the Askeriya temple, where the many devotees and student Theras of the late Deputy Chief Prelate paid their respects. The President, former Presidents, politicians and government officials also paid their final respects to the late Thera. Welcome back. The Department of Import and Export Control has reported a revenue of 3.7 billion rupees for the year 2024, generated through the issuance of import and export control licenses. According to the department's 2024 performance report, this marks a 13% increase in revenue compared to the previous year. 17,010 import and export licenses have been issued in 2024. The highest number of licenses were granted for the importation of mobile phones, communication equipment and other equipment. Additionally, there was a notable increase in the issuance of licenses for the import and export of chemical fertilizers, pesticides and industrial raw materials. The number of licenses issued for the importation of maize for animal feed production and shelled cashew nuts for local consumption has also exceeded the respective figures of the previous year. Meanwhile, 687 licenses have been issued for the importation of tea leaves in 2024, indicating an increase from 2023. The Colombo Bourse closed in positive territory today as a result of price gains in counters such as Selinco Holdings, Central Finance Company and National Development Bank. The all-share price index gained 0.71% to close at 19,379.24, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 gained 0.81% to close at 5,735.44. Market turnover crossed 6.2 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreign investors closing as net buyers, purchasing shares worth 255 million rupees. And with that, here's a look at the day's foreign exchange rates. In international economic developments, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi signed a landmark free trade deal with UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer today in a multi-billion pound export boost. UK cars and whiskey will be cheaper to export to India, and Indian textiles and jewellery will be cheaper to export to the UK under the agreement. The deal took 3 years to reach and also commits to a new India-UK plan to tackle illegal migration. The deal will create more than 2,200 jobs across Britain as Indian firms expand their operations in the UK and British companies secure new business opportunities in India. The UK government says the deal will boost the British economy by £4.8 billion a year. Average tariffs for UK exports to India will drop from 15% to 3%, making it easier for British companies to sell goods in India. The two prime ministers have also agreed on closer collaboration around defence, education, climate technology and innovation. That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.